Thank you all so much for joining us. My name is Rick Roberts, and this is
Maria Thomas.
And we're going to do a Zentangle tile together. And we invite you to join along. Anytime that this is going too fast, just ask whoever's running the DVD to pause. Everybody should have one of these tiles. We call them tiles. We make it small enough so that you can finish it in one sitting. And we're going to work on the plain side. So everybody relax, put your feet on the floor,
deep breath,
settle in, and begin with the pencil. The first thing we're going to do is to put a dot a little ways in from each corner.
Nice and light, so that because we want this to disappear afterwards.
You can connect the dots. Maria, you want to do the other two?
Yeah, because I don't do it like Rick. I have a tendency to make them a little curvier just because to me it's more interesting. So don't think you have to make them straight. We don't need rulers. We're just going to have some fun.
So now you don't have a blank paper. You're not worried about what to put down. We're not trying to draw something. We're just going to have fun putting lines down on a piece of paper. After you have your corner dots and your border in, Maria's going to do what we call the string, which is a very important part of the Zentangle method.
Okay, so today's string, just because we want to work with 4 different sections, we're going to do a shape that is a Z, and we're going to hit the sides, and what this does, it creates 4 sections inside your border. So each one will be filled with a tangle.
Now you can put your pencils down, and we're going to get the pen, and you can uncap the pen, and just so you don't lose the topping, put it on the back because we're going to need it later. And Maria's going to start with our first pattern, and we call our patterns tangles.
The first tangle we're going to do is called Crescent Moon, and we have names for all our tangles. And this is the one that we always start with because it's kind of fun, it's a little easy, and it has a surprising ending. We're going to start by drawing these little ladybug shapes. And we're going to turn the tile as we do it. And you're going to enjoy coloring them in, taking your time, focusing on each one of these shapes. And they're a little bit bigger than a real ladybug.
Quite a bit bigger.
Are they?
Yeah.
Oh, my.
At least twice.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, these were really big ladybugs.
Really big ladybugs.
So we'll give you a minute to do that. The next thing we're going to do is one of the things we use often in Zentangle, and it's called an aura. An aura is simply a line that traces around the image that you just put down. And what it entails is that you're going to draw around the image that you just drew previously. So we're going to, what were you going to say, Rick?
So it's an echo. We're echoing that shape just a little bit a ways from it, but the same distance away from it each time.
We're going to use this often, so you'll get plenty of practice.
And you notice how Maria is rotating her tile. Feel free to rotate your tile in whatever way is most comfortable for your hand.
Okay, so I'm going to do this again. We're going to put another aura around each one of these ladybugs. And you can see when I get to some place here that I can't go all the way down, I'll just sort of leave it at that. So see here, I stop here because I can't go all the way down. You might come up with that. And you want to take your time and really enjoy it.
One of the words that we use, and you may have heard, is mindful. And by mindful, we mean that you're putting the line there because you want it there. And you're doing it not just because your pen is sketching it or going back and forth really fast, but slow down, appreciate the ink coming out of the pen and putting it there because you want it there.
Okay, here we go again. We're going to do another aura. And this aura is going to, you can see at this point that I'm just pretty much bouncing around now. And I'm just going to keep going around and around until I get to the middle. And it's really fun. It happens really fast. There, we've finished our first tangle, and it's called Crescent Moon. Okay, guys?
Pretty good.
There you go.
Okay, now we're going to do another tangle. And this is one that I like a lot. And it was created by a person that did woodworking. So you'll see this probably inspired the pattern that he came up with, and his last name was Hollabaugh. So we call this Hollabaugh. Pick another section. It may be the section I do. It may be another section. I'm going to start by putting a straight line right down the middle. And now I'm going to put another straight line right next to it. Now I'm going to rotate my tile because I like to draw my lines towards me. I find that's the easiest for me. And I'm going to draw another line, but notice what happens here. This goes just behind the first one. So now we have two, whatever you might think they are, boards or sticks or roads, and one is obviously on top of the other. So the next step is just, we're going to do it again. And each time we do it behind, we might make it a different thickness. And I tend to, turn the tile so it's not exactly 90 degrees, not perfectly right angles, not perfectly not right angles. And just keep putting these in like you maybe dropped a bunch of boards.
I really like this tangle because it's an unexpected pattern. It's a little bit different than most of the things we do because it's very random. Interesting. It could look like a bunch of roads that you would see from the sky. It could be pickup sticks. It could be, what else could it be, Rick?
Well, what's nice about this one is that it shows you that you can discover patterns where you wouldn't normally think of them as patterns. So this might be looking at, like you cut some grass and it's just laying down and you're looking at it with a magnifying glass. Well, who would think of that as a pattern so much? But there it is. Maria, you want to do some?
And with most of our tangles, you can always make it a little more interesting or a little more complicated compared to, depending on how much time you want to spend on your Zentangle. And I love to spend a lot of time on my Zentangles. So I'm going to add a few more lines here, more boards, and maybe some that are thinner, make them look like they're sitting way back down there. And then after that, I think, maybe I could put something in the background. So behind the boards, I'm going to just put a dot in the middle of each section that I see, and it's going to add a little balance and a little interest.
There's so much you can do with all of our tangles. This particular one, you could, for instance, color the entire background black. You could perhaps put patterns or tangles on the boards themselves. And one of the things that you're going to notice is that you will become more aware of the patterns around you. So even if right now you were to look around the room, you're going to find things and see textures and patterns, maybe the way the floors are, maybe in the carpet, the way the grid is over the lights, whatever it may be. You'll see that we're surrounded by patterns. And what Zentangle does is we deconstruct those complicated looking patterns into something that you can repeat in a formula manner, one stroke at a time, without having to be concerned about what it's going to look like when you're finally done.
Okay, the next tangle that we're going to do is called Tortuga. And this is kind of fun. Choose another section. So we're going to start with what we call a grid. And a grid is basically what you guys would think of as a checkerboard. And I think you can all draw one of these pretty easily. Just
parallel lines.
My lines are sometimes not that straight. And don't forget to hold your pen lightly. After that, what we're going to do is inside each one of these squares, we're going to draw a spiral. So it's a circle that goes from the middle and then around and around and around, and you keep going until you hit the edges of your grid. And we're going to do that in each one of these squares. So you're going to enjoy doing these spirals.
Now, one of the things that a string does, a reason that we use our string in pencil, is unlike a coloring book, you can sort of, if you want to, sneak outside the line. And as you're doing this, if you're inspired, like I'm just watching Maria's here, and every now and then she'll like push outside the line. And that's okay. It's one of the reasons that we do the lines in pencil. It's sort of like if you ever see a horse in a corral and you got the fence and it's not like totally a wall. Sometimes they're in there all the time, but occasionally they'll put their head through and eat the grass outside, and occasionally they'll just jump right over it. So you can do that with a pencil string.
Okay, so this is the basic Tortuga. Now I like to go in the corners here where you see where the lines meet from the grid, and I like to kind of color those in. You can see they're like little squares in the corners. So make those nice, deep, rich black.
And if we're going too fast, well, just put us on pause. And the most important thing is just enjoy this and make your marks deliberate. You saw on Tortuga that we started out with a grid. Well, we're going to start out with a grid again on this one, only I'm going to do it just a little bit different. I'm going to start by putting a line. Mine may be a little bit, I'm doing it about the width of the pencil. But you'll see if they don't stay exactly parallel, well, that's okay too. And now I'm going to make these lines in the other direction. So we end up with another set of, you could call them squares. And we call this Knightsbridge because who knows what a Knightsbridge looks like. We will now color in like you would on a checkerboard will be alternate ones. So how do you know which one to do? Well, we're going to pick one. Any one does not matter. So you just pick that.
I like to start in the middle.
You start in the middle and just fill this in And feel free to turn your tile. This is very important for me anyways, because my hand likes to move back and forth like this. So if I move the tile under my hand, it's easier for me to work. Now, I'll tell you a trick about how to know which one to do next, and that is you always, if this is the one you did, you want to color in the one that's shares the corner. So like we have colored this one, let's do this one because it shares the corner. I'm going to turn the tile like this because it's easy for me.
Sometimes when we do a grid like this, it's hard to figure out, but when they share the corner like that, you always get it right.
So here's this one off this corner. Again, this is how my hand works best. And then I'll just fill that in and just appreciating the ink on the paper and taking the time to do it. Remembering to breathe. Remembering to relax. And understanding that all this that we're doing gets done one stroke at a time. You can't do two strokes at a time. So it makes sense to be mindful of the stroke that you're doing and really focus on that one. Because one unique aspect of Zentangle is that we don't know what it's going to look like when it's done. So you don't have to worry about, well, it doesn't look like a duck or a face or a hand or anything like that. It just has to look like a Zentangle. And you enjoy this process. Feeling free to rotate the tile. Always looking for that corner and working the next one off of that corner. And let's see, are we done? No, one more here. And now, I guess we would say that we're done. So we've finished all of these 4 sections. Well, we've put the black ink in all of these 4 sections, but there's still more to do. And what would that be?
We're gonna, because our life isn't just black and white, meaning that there's just more to it. We add what we call shades of gray to our tangles. Pick up your pencils.
So I'm going to use the pencil, and again, light stroke, you can always make it darker later. So I'm going to go to the right of my first board and just put some shadow there. And I'm going to turn my tile and put it on the other side too. And that just looks like it's jumping off the page. All of a sudden there's a contrast between the one below it. So instead of doing all of them, we're just going to do a few. But you can imagine if you had the time, you could do all of them. So I'm not going to do every board, but you might want to later. But we'll just do a few to give you an idea. Let's see. Almost like a puzzle to figure out which was the next one.
But like Rick said, you could end up doing all of them, in which case it doesn't matter what order that you've done it in.
So let me just do this one. I mean, this is so much fun. You just sort of get into it.
This is like putting frosting on the cake. It's the fun part that I think it is anyway. It brings it to life.
Okay.
Okay.
Want to do crescent moon?
Sure. So for crescent moon, with your pencil, I would suggest just adding some pencil. And I'm going to just take my time and just really color in with this pencil. This is a great pencil. And you're going to go maybe about 1/4 of an inch around, just covering the ladybugs. That's a good one. We'll do it that way. Covering the ladybugs with some shading. But you got to be careful not to put so much pencil that everything becomes dark. You want to leave that light space in the middle. Can you see that? Now that becomes what we call a highlight. And I like to smudge it with my finger a little bit. On Tortuga, this turtle shell tangle, it's easy to shade this one, remembering where your original grid line was. If you remember, it was right to the edges of each of the coils, or the spirals. So I'm just going to shade a little bit in between each of the spirals. And then we're going to turn the tile and do it the other way. Turning the tile even with shading. It really helps. Wait till you try this. This is going to make so much sense to you.
And just leave a little bit of it white. You want to still leave some, not all shaded.
So you can see now that in the middle of these coils and these spirals, it's white in the middle. So that creates a highlight.
And on this one, let's see. I think what I'm going to do, I'm just going to do a little bit on the edge. And you'll see the effect of that is that it's almost like it's unfurling or opening up or rounded there. And just leave it at that. But you can see how just a little bit of shading really brought this to life, gives it some dimensionality, which means it looks like it's curved and there's things behind one another. And you might think we were done, but we're not. The most important, well, not the most important, but a really important part is this is a piece of art. And any great artist, you'll see they always sign their art. So take your pen, again, we'll uncap it, and I put my little mark here, which is the 2 R's. And Maria?
I put my MT right over here. And I have an M over a T. That's what I've decided on, and usually a dot underneath.
And then on the back, we always sign it. You want to sign this?
Oh, I do. But I also have something else I want you to do too. I want you to hold it out
Yes.
like this, as far from your face as you can. And I want you to turn it this way and that, this way and that. And I want you to admire your work and hold it so that you can see it in a different way.
You may see something when you're not looking so close up on it that you miss, that you can appreciate. What we really encourage everyone to do is to take your tiles and find a table and put them together in what we call a mosaic. So we put the tiles together, and what's fun to see is that different people in different classes heard the same thing, used the same tools, and created something that was uniquely them, but it all works together in this beautiful mosaic. we'll look forward to seeing you next time.
Take these home. Show them to all your friends and family. Have fun.
Absolutely. Okay, take care. Bye.